Hello. I am still very inspired by an artist called Paul Klee. Last time, in our previous lesson, we played with all the squares and the letters and created something along these lines here, like this, and we have an aardvark. Been playing with circles as well to try and make it, a little bit different, and I hope it inspired you too. So I thought I'd take it one step further, and based on the work of Paul Klee, we can try and sort of create our own ways of working. So I have drawn a grid onto this sheet of paper in the same way as we did the other one, just by measuring the width of the ruler. There we are. And what I am going to do is I haven't got any tracing paper, and I haven't got an awful lot of greaseproof paper left either, because the last bit was used to make some amazing cheese straws yesterday. So I'm just going to kind of attach these two things here, and I'm going to copy the size onto tracing paper if you've got any. Of course, that's better. So I've got the size of the actual rectangle on here, and with a different color, with a different color, I am going to trace the squares as well. There we are. So what I'm going to do now is, with a pencil, I'm just going to draw a picture on here. This could be anything. I know some of you have really enjoyed the rainbow project that we had on one of our other lesson plans this week, and was actually sort of a nationwide thing. So it might just be that you want to do rainbows, you might want to do flowers, or, if you want to make it a little bit more difficult, you could maybe look at other artists or draw from observation. So it will depend, of course, on perhaps a little bit on how skilled you are as well. But, so we all do it to, where we feel comfortable at. So I'm just going to draw a few houses on here. I'm just going to be inspired by one of my favorite places, which is St. Ives, and I'm just going to, which is full of little houses, so I'm just going to make them up. And we put some windows in there. Now I'm just going to take a fraction here of the drawing because it's a little bit easier. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So that's the drawing. And then the next stage is, so we've got our squares on here. We're almost going to put it in a different order. So this will kind of give us a very abstract work. And at the same time, it will sort of lead us into more of a cubist way of working. So what I'm going to do, so we've got square 1 there. So square 1 here is the same square that's overlapping. Well, I don't want that square to be on the same place. So I'm going, so bearing 1, 2, 3, just going to take this away. So square number 1, I'm going to put it over there. In order to try and press it through, because this doesn't really matter right now, is I'm going to turn it the other way around. I'm just going to go over my pencil line. So that was square 1. I'm just going to make this a little bit more obvious. So square number 2, so I don't want it there. I'm going to put it somewhere else. It doesn't matter where. And here we are. So going to put that there. So that was square number 2. Square number 3, I've decided to put that on the top there. And you choose where you want it, yeah. And then after a while, you're gonna start to maybe look a little bit more at composition. So for example, if this square is very busy and this square is very busy and everything around it is getting quite busy, you might want to put a square here where not an awful lot is happening. So you try, eventually you will start to balance it all out. Right, let's continue. That's quite fun because that's just matching there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put that on there. The great thing is you can reuse this. So you can use it as many times as you like. I mean, you could, for example, make a bigger one and then have certain areas repeat itself. So that could be an interesting way of working as well. So the part you really have to concentrate on is the actual square. You just have to make sure they overlap, and then you know you've got it right. Oop. This is Boris. Boris is probably keeping you entertained whilst I continue this. So I have one more square, which is this one. That's obviously going to go there. There we are. Right, so I have created a very new, so this is just houses. So when you look at the part I've got here, this looks very, very, very different. So certain parts are still recognizable, but the order has completely changed. So it's really turned it into an abstract work. So by then using colors, and not sticking to the exact shapes again, or to the exact color that you know the objects are. So for example, by not making the sky blue, for example, you will create a complete different reality almost. So so this brings us into the surrealism, because this is above what's actually the real thing. And see, Paul Klee was also seen as a surrealist, and so this is what makes it also a little bit more understandable, really understanding, to, you know, when we look at it and do it ourselves, you can really sort of figure out how these artists become more and more influenced by each other, and one thing leads to another. You know, just an ordinary letter, sort of, you know, where you play with letters and the order, you start to play more and more with the rhythm and the shapes, and you start to get more and more ideas, and eventually you get to something like this, and somebody gives it a different name, and suddenly we have something that is leaning to cubism. And this is, I think, the beauty about art, where it just sort of, you know, moves from one thing and to another. And so I'm telling you guys about this, and hopefully you'll be inspired by it, and you think, oh crikey, that's a really good idea. And actually it's quite simple, you know, it's not a difficult thing to do. And so this is what I'm hoping to achieve, is for people to actually be able to take part in something like this. And we are now going to play with balancing the colors, because that's the very tricky part when you actually make an abstract work. And once we start doing that and concentrating on the actual the colors rather than shapes and what it is, you really are veering to making a really lovely abstract work. So let's get some paint, and I'm just going to add a few tones in there. Right, so there we go. So I've chosen this blue, and I could have done a sky blue, but I won't. I might in some places though, because I'm not looking at the sky anymore. I'm not looking at the houses anymore. I'm just looking at this as a bundle of lines, a bundle of shapes, and I am just going to play with colors and just place them in such a way so they are balanced. And it just makes you step away from what's really there. And that's the beauty about art, you see. That's when it all, in my opinion, becomes interesting. So I've got, you know, everything is a little bit veering over to the right. So I need something here to balance it out. So I'm going to be brave and have a larger part in this blue. Something small there. Feel it needs something there. So what you could do, but I won't just yet, is always draw a little line or create another little square there, just to, you know, balance it out. But I won't for now. We'll see what will happen. So I'm just going to use a very bright color. So yellow is a very powerful color. So that's very heavy, obviously. I'm going that way, so I'm just going to have an area here. and this is how we continue. And so we say then you have the next color, and so on and so on. So this one here I made yesterday. Now let me see. So this was St. Ives, or again, you know, inspired by St. Ives. So I just did the drawing. We've got the squares in red, just to make it a little bit easier on the back. And I have then transferred it the same way as I've done just now, wherever I've put it. And here we are. I did exactly the same working method, so it's just a little bit bigger, and basically have been playing by placing the colors. Now, you don't have to color every single part, you know, it might just be a case of you like the playfulness of the white here and there in between. I do, so I certainly won't fill the whole thing. But yes, so this is, I think it's a great way of trying to understand maybe a little bit more about how abstract art sort of works really, and how you guys can hopefully all create it. So have fun, and please send some text messages with your results for those who go to Aardvark. If not, please put some comments on YouTube. It's always great to see what people achieve. Enjoy!